invite you to relax into this sacred time and sacred space that you have created for yourself. I invite you to fully immerse yourself in this radical act of self-love, to step into your power, to become your own healer, your own shaman. So make yourself comfortable. Take a few deep breaths to prepare yourself for the journey ahead. And dive into this deep medicine of the imagination. Closing your eyes and bringing your awareness into the here and now, into this time and into this place. Into your body and into your breath. Because this is time for you. It's time to be, time to rest, relax, release, and recharge. Okay, so nice big deep breath there, just sinking into the journey space. What do you have to show me or tell me today then, allies? Okay, I'm seeing a very strange image that started off looking a bit like a headless chicken, and kind of chicken that you get in the supermarket, like a fresh whole roasting chicken, but it had wings with feathers, and now it's grown big legs and it's kind of stalking about, but it doesn't have a head, and it looks kind of like, it just looks very strange. What is this strange headless chicken stalking about for? Give me a bit more information about this, please. What does this represent? So I'm being kind of given the words and image as sort of walking but not talking, walking not thinking, and I think they're trying to talk about unconsciousness or not being conscious. That's where the head is missing part, that there's an unconsciousness in this situation because of the chicken doesn't have a head. It's walking about, but it's not seeing or thinking or processing or big deep breath. Okay, what else do you have to tell me about this? Give me a bit more information and clarification, please. Okay, I'm being given the word unaware as well. There's an unawareness. So it's not that the issue or the situation at hand is being ignored, it's that there is a lack of awareness, which is it's nobody's fault. The lack of the head is a lack of awareness. It's not being aware or not knowing about the situation. Okay, so I'm being reminded of a saying that we have in English, which is walking around like a headless chicken. So it's kind of referencing that a little bit, which kind of implies lots of busyness but not really thinking about what we're doing, that there's a lot of action but no awareness around that action and what the purpose is, or the function is of that action. And so we also use this term, running around like a headless chicken, to refer to being really super busy, very, very busy, so busy that we're almost losing our head, which can imply stress. Yeah, with this idea that this is is about being very busy, but without thinking, okay, so I'm being told now that this is where we have come from as a global collective humanity consciousness. I'm being shown the world, I'm being shown this big headless chicken, and in fact lots of big headless chickens running around all over the world, and I'm being told that this is the consciousness level that we have been holding over the past, I'm being given like 50 years, this is the consciousness level, running around like headless chickens in our world, in our lives, busy, 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 always being told that we have to be doing something, being productive, being active and a worthy part of society, being productive members of society, but all of this action and activity has come without any consciousness or without any thought or awareness, for the most part, for a large part. And if you think about the innovation in our world around technology and progress, and how, just as an example, mobile phones, for example, the technology within mobile phones and within the hardware and within the software, it's almost out of date when it's brand new on the shelves, isn't it? There's this kind of hungry, insatiable hunger for more, faster progress at any cost. But what's lacking is this consciousness and thought, which comes with the head of the chicken, around why we're actually doing that, what we're doing it for, what's the purpose, are there any considerations we need to have around risks and benefits and long-term consequences and all of these kind of things. This is kind of what I'm being shown, that we've been living headless chicken lives up until now. Okay, so allies, you were very clear in kind of giving me this image and this metaphor for what we are coming from. How does that relate to the issues at hand, and where we are at now and where we are going to? So we're getting a lot of rain this afternoon. There was some hail coming down as well. Okay, my eyes have started twitching. This is Isis. Isis is crying. Big deep breath. Okay, so Isis uses her tears, her big goddess tears, to wash away the consequences of violence, patriarchal and male violence, and that can be individual violence but also systemic institutional violence. Ooh, it's really coming down now. Isis is crying hard at this point, and so I would ask you, Goddess Isis, to please use your cleansing power, your big beautiful goddess tears, to wash away this the violence that comes from unconscious progress at any cost, which is the metaphor that we received with the chicken, the headless chickens running around on the planet. That this unthinking, unconscious busy action and activity is, in many ways it's ridiculous, isn't it? It's action with no purpose, or with little thought to the consequence of the purpose. Big deep breath as Isis is really rinsing away these patterns of male and patriarchal violence. And really, this is about systemic violence, and that's the violence that's done to our psyche, that's the violence that's done to our culture, that's the violence that's done to our ancestral lineage, that's the violence that's been done to us through multiple lifetimes. This violence has been going on for a long time. Okay, I'm being told that this is also the violence that cut the chicken's head off in the first place. And at that point, when I had that thought, I got shivers up and down my legs. And so this is the first act of violence, is beheading the chicken in the very first instance. So let's have a look at that and unpick that a bit. Okay, I see she's going too fast for me to keep up now. I'm also being told to relay the story of how Isis healed her husband Osiris. So Osiris was a god king, the husband of Isis, and Isis and Osiris had been sent down to Earth to govern and rule and look after the humans on planet Earth and to look after the Earth herself. And they did a fabulous job. They did really well. The humans on Earth were really conscious and considerate and kind and loving towards one another, collectively motivated. Basically, they were doing a really good job. And then another god, and I can't remember his name now, but he was jealous, and he was the husband of Isis's sister. And this jealous god came along and basically did a coup d'etat on Osiris, and he killed Osiris, and he chopped his body up. He cut his head off, and he cut his arms and legs off, and he cut his penis off, and he scattered Osiris's body parts into all corners of the world. He basically he scattered him. He cut him up and he scattered him around. So I'm being told that this is a parallel to the headless chicken, okay? And that through this scattering of Osiris, through the killing and scattering of Osiris and his body parts, this interloper, this god who sought the glory and praise and might of ruling over Earth, he took over the ruling of the planet as the god of the planet, and he did a terrible job, and the people started fighting with one another. His energy of death and destruction surrounded the planet, and the people started killing each other and being very destructive and violent, and terror and violence ruled across planet Earth. And at this point, Isis, with her sister, whose husband who had stolen the throne, they went and they collected all of the body parts of Osiris from all of the corners of the world, and they gathered them up together. And this is where the tale comes in of lamenting Isis. Isis then cries over the body parts of her husband. Okay, so I'm getting shivers up and down my legs now, and the rain is still beating down on the roof hard. Isis cries over the body parts of her dead, dismembered husband, and she heals him enough to the point where he comes back to life, just for long enough. Whoa, I'm getting a lot of shivers up and down my legs now. Just for long enough to conceive their child, Horus. Okay, so Osiris is brought back to life. He is brought back to life only for long enough to conceive the child Horus with Isis, and he then goes down to the underworld and is given the role and the job of being the lord of the underworld. And so effectively he dies, really. You know, Isis manages to bring him back to life long enough for him to sire a child, a child god in Horus, and then Osiris dies and goes down to the underworld and becomes the lord of the underworld. And so this story, what I'm being told is that this time in our human history where Osiris was beheaded, dismembered, you know, this was also the time in our history where we, as the chickens running around on planet Earth, were beheaded, where we had our greater levels of consciousness, awareness and spiritual connection, because that's another thing that the head does. We had this connection removed. We had this ability to perceive and conceive and be connected to our higher awareness and our higher consciousness. It was removed. It was beheaded. Through the beheading of Osiris, you know, humanity was also beheaded at this time. And ever since then, we have been running around like chickens, headless chickens on Mother Earth, doing, but not really thinking about what we're doing or why we're doing it. And we have been at the behest of this interloper god who has been ruling the planet through violence. And you know, this is the root of this patriarchal violence which Isis fights against, because obviously this interloper king god, and I can't remember his name, I wish I could remember his name, you know, this was the first act of patriarchal violence on planet Earth. It was the beheading of the ruler and the stealing of the throne by a jealous and vengeful god. This was the first act of patriarchal structural violence. And so Isis comes as an ally for me to fight against the effects and consequences of patriarchal violence, because she was the one who suffered first at the hands of this violent god, as when she lost her husband. You know, she was a widow to this violence. Effectively, she lost her husband, and so as the story unfolded, you know, she summoned up her own power within herself to use her own magical and healing abilities to heal her husband long enough to give herself a son. And so Isis is renowned for being both a mother goddess in her role as the mother of Horus and protector and goddess over mothers and babies and children and motherhood and birthing. And she is also a very powerful healer, a magical and powerful healer, because she managed to bring her husband back from the dead, albeit only for a short time. And so this is what Isis, as she cries her tears on the roof of my boat, which is now just a little pitter-patter, gentle pitter-patter, you know, this is what she is crying over. She is crying over us poor headless chickens, us human headless chickens, and bringing back the head, to reattach the head onto us, onto ourselves, so that we can act and behave and be and do from a restored place of consciousness, awareness and thought and conceptualization. You know, let's run around on this planet as headed chickens, not headless chickens. Because if we think about healthy chickens with heads, you know, one of the things that chickens are renowned for is fertility, productivity, the laying of eggs. Yeah, eggs are all about creation, they're all about fertility. We think about springtime. Okay, I'm being given another connection here. So in springtime we celebrate Easter, also at the same time as spring equinox and the pagan Nordic festival of Ostara. And all of these spring festivals are festivals of fertility, rebirth, and resurrection. And in many ways, you could say that the restoring of the head onto the headless chicken, you know, is a form of resurrection, isn't it? It's a rebirthing, it's a restoring, a restoration of our true potential. It's a reclaiming of consciousness and awareness, of thinking and processing, and using focused intention to create, rather than the chaotic running around of headless chickens, which, you know, I bring back to the reality of the fact that chickens can actually run around without their heads, and do so. I've seen footage of this. When chickens are beheaded for slaughter, you know, they can carry on running around without their head for a period of time, which is completely insane, isn't it? That we can still live without this, what might be deemed as really important functional part of our being, but we can carry on running around in a frenzied manner as well. You know, that's what headless chickens do when they've had their heads cut off or twisted off, is they run around in a frenzied manner. And I, you know, bring us back to this parallel with humanity for the last 50 years, running around in a frenzied manner with very little direction, really, and chaotic activity, doing, but not thinking about why or how or what for we are doing all of this doing for. So this feels like that's a long explanation as to what I think is happening here with all of that rain that was coming down. Is Isis is restoring the consciousness of humanity. That's the end goal of this work today. We are having our consciousness restored, our full, true ability to see and perceive and plan and think out what we're doing and why we are doing it. You know, this is what consciousness is about, isn't it? What are we doing and why are we doing it? And is it a good idea? Or is it a terrible idea? This is what we gain the gift of when we use the full extent of our consciousness and awareness in conjunction with our intention, which comes from our heart space, and our action, which comes from our bodies, and the fire that animates all of that, which comes from our spirit. So we're being given back the gift today of consciousness and awareness. And I've got a bit of pain in my head. My head is a little bit painful. It's a bit sore. I'm just going to move the cushions, the pillow around to make my head a bit more comfortable, because I was getting some little pains there through the temples. Mind you, I suppose if somebody's reattaching your head, it's not, it might be a bit uncomfortable. But that's kind of the sense that I get, that Isis is there. She's collected the head from wherever it had been tossed, the chicken's head, and she's now stitching it on and crying all over it to kind of reattach it and bring it back into good working order. And you know, the rain is still pitter-pattering on the roof. Gently healing restoring and healing our psyche, our consciousness, our awareness, our ability to perceive and conceive. And I'm being told that this is also connecting to our ability to weigh up the morals and the ethics of what is happening on our planet. The morals and the ethics and the justice or not of the actions that we participate within and that we consent to as individuals and as a human collective on this earth. You know, with consciousness comes responsibility. That responsibility comes from a weighing up of the scales of justice, which is wrong and right, isn't it? It's about using our moral compass and weighing up the scales of justice to decide whether things are morally okay or not. I'm getting more pain in my head, kind of right up in my... Ooh, that is really quite sore. It feels like somebody's got my head open on the top of my crown and is fiddling around with a screwdriver or something, kind of rewiring stuff or reattaching things, or putting things back online maybe. It's certainly not comfortable. It's really quite painful and uncomfortable. But I guess this is okay, so I'm being told that this is another metaphor for where we find ourselves in the current status quo of humanity. We find ourselves in a place of deep discomfort, of mental discomfort, of the things that we are being asked to look at. You know, with having our heads restored, we can now see and hear and think and receive information and process information that we were essentially blind to before, when we were headless chickens. You know, as we are having our heads stitched back on and healed up, and all of our capacities and consciousness functions being switched back on again, you know, we are being confronted with some really, really difficult and challenging and uncomfortable, that's the word I keep coming back to, uncomfortable realities. And this is what we're going to have to deal with at the minute, is that these uncomfortable realities, you know, we've been kind of swanning through life without our heads on, just doing, not really thinking about the bigger picture, not really thinking about the long-term outcome, not really thinking about why we're doing something or what we're doing it for, but kind of going along on this autopilot, headless chicken frenzy conveyor belt. And now that we're having our heads put back on again, we're coming face to face to some really, really uncomfortable realities. And we're just going to have to ride through that. We're going to have to ride through it and then make a choice. Because once you've seen those uncomfortable realities, without chopping your head back off again, you know, you can't unsee them. And I think, you know, many people are probably in the state of mind where they're going, no, I don't want to have my head stitched back on again. No, it's so much easier not having to think about things and not having to weigh up the consequences and not having to address difficult and uncomfortable truths and realities. But you know, the thing is, this is a collective experience we're going through. We are all being asked to have our heads stitched back on again. And I guess, you know, we are ultimately beings of free will. I guess if the chickens want to carry on running around headless, they probably will be allowed to do that. But how long a headless chicken can carry on running is another big question, isn't it? And I can feel my chest, my heart, my upper chest and my throat area starting to come into this process. It's almost like in stitching on the head, it reconnects that relationship, that meridian between the heart and the head. It reconnects that connection between the consciousness being tempered with loving intention. So it restores and returns us to a place where we are being asked to think about what we're doing, think about what we do individually and collectively, and to make those choices and take those actions from a heart space, from a place of love, tempering our decisions, tempering our choices with love. And it's almost like if you imagine, doing a head transplant, all of the stitching together of the arteries and the veins and the fusing of bones and the nerves and the blood systems and the lymphatic systems and the nervous system, the reconnecting of all of those systems of physicality. That's just a metaphor, that's a template really for the energetic connections that are being reconnected between intention and consciousness within ourselves at this time. That our consciousness is being turned back on with a much, much bigger capacity to be fully conscious and fully aware, and that process of kind of reconnecting our heart space and our communication space in the chest and the throat with the consciousness of the head space, might take a little bit of time to get all of that working and functioning fully. We might need a bit of energetic physiotherapy to get those systems fully functional again. Because going back to the story of Osiris having his head cut off and his body being dismembered, that happened a long time ago. We're talking about a few thousand years ago. If our heads were cut off, if our consciousness, our higher consciousness, was cut off a few thousand years ago, it's going to take a little bit of time for that consciousness to be kind of fully functional and working at full capacity again. So it feels like this period of time will be very much kind of recovery time for us. We're going to be confronted with some hard truths and realities that we can now see clearly because we've had our consciousness restored. But then how we go about actioning and responding to that consciousness in our physical bodies, through our actions, through our intentions, and through our choices, and through our communication and expression, this may well take a little bit of time for us to remember and to relearn how to do that effectively. So I'm being told here that we need to give ourselves time and space for that consciousness to come back online in a fully functional way. But it's not going to happen overnight. And part of the unrest that we see unfolding around us, ourselves, is part of the kind of the energetic consequences and ripples that having our consciousness restored is going to make. You know, as our heads land back on our shoulders, this is going to create big ripples through our reality. And that will play out in our collective consciousness, in our collective psyche, and in our collective conflicts and actions and reactions upon the world stage, upon the stages of our own individual lives, of the microcosm of our subjective realities, but equally that will be mirrored and echoed on the bigger macrocosm realities of our collective reality and our world stage. And I'm still getting quite a lot of kind of pains through my chest. It's not even in my heart, it's not in my heart space, it's through my chest. It's, what is this about, allies? Come and address these pains that I can feel in my chest. What is this? Okay, I'm being told that this is collective grief. Collective grief around long-standing injustices against humanity. I'm being told that this is the grief that is starting to rise up in our collective consciousness. The collective grief that we feel around the injustices that are the most obvious ones. These are the grievances that are going to rise up first. These are the grievances and the pain and the betrayal of our human soul journeys, the journeys that we as souls have taken on this planet for the last several thousand years, have been full of pain and injustice through all different classes of life, through all different groups of people, races, religions, sexes, cultures, genders, sexualities. Humans have been divided, and through that division pitted against one another. Like, I'm being given the image of gladiators in the Roman circus. It's fight to the death, and you have no choice. If you want to survive, you are forced to fight your opponent, who you have not chosen as an enemy, but has been presented to you as your enemy. And so we find ourselves in the Roman circus, being told that we have to fight this enemy that we never chose. And we are being told all of the reasons why this enemy is against us and why they are going to harm us, and so we have to harm them. There's a control by the people running the circus. There's a control element here of, putting humans in a position really where they had no choice, where they were forced into conflict, where they were forced into injustice, where they were forced to both participate in dishing it out and also participate in being on the receiving end of it. And this is what is changing, this is what is shifting, this is what we are being given when we have our heads stitched back on, is the ability to see this game, this sport, this entertainment for those who built the circus and those who are watching from the royal boxes, from the from the emperor's place. We as the gladiators be it the gladiators fighting each other in the ring, or the lion being starved so that it wants to eat the Christians. You know, it doesn't matter how you perceive this division. This is what we as a human collective have been going through, is we have been thrown into the circus ring and pitted against an enemy that we never chose. And both parties have been put into a place of pain so that they have to fight to the death. Okay, ISIS is really, really seriously raining the rain on the roof now. The tears are coming down in a big way. We are clearing now the deep, deep, deep grief of the betrayal of humanity and the extreme injustice that we have had to endure as humans on this planet. The grief that we all collectively carry around that, both for the grief, the guilt that we have participated in being the oppressor, as well as the pain of betrayal of being the oppressed. You know, we and our ancestors and our identities within our past lifetimes, we have played both of these roles. We have all played both of these roles, oppressor and oppressed. But you know, they were choreographed, they were created. This oppressor and oppressed illusion, puppetry really, was being controlled by a much, much higher power. Alright, so now I'm being shown very clearly the image of the gladiators fighting each other in the Roman circus, and I can see strings coming from their arms and their legs and their swords and their armour, and these strings are going up into the sky and are attached to puppet like frames, you know, the wooden frames that hold the puppets and control the strings. And I can see the hands of the puppet masters in the sky, pitting humans against one another. And I'm being told that it is time to cut those strings now. It is time to cut the strings so that we are no longer being manipulated by the puppet masters, so that we are no longer being pitted against one another, divided, and you know, each party being demonized, so that these systems of control can perpetuate by humans being forced to fight one another in this ridiculous charade of oppression. You know, the true oppressors are beyond humanity, actually. They are not human. The true oppressors are not human. And so today I am calling for an ally to come and cut all of these cords that exist between us humans as individual humans on this planet and the puppet masters who pull our strings. And I open up this invitation to all humans on this planet, to all of the ancestors who came before us and all of the ancestors who will come after us, to all humans on this planet, past, present and future. I open up the possibility now for you to have these strings cut, the strings that have controlled you for so long, the strings that have manipulated us against one another. And I call for the ally who wishes to come and do this cord cutting. Who is going to step forward as the one who severs these strings, who slices these strings? Okay, I have Kestrel and I have Archangel Michael. Really, for me, Kestrel is actually an aspect of Archangel Michael. Kestrel is the animal embodiment of Archangel Michael. And so I call upon you, Kestrel and Archangel Michael, to cut all of the strings of all of the humans who no longer wish to be manipulated by higher powers or greater powers that have dark agendas for our purpose. Those who seek to control and manipulate us, please cut the cords that exist between humans and these other forces that seek to manipulate humanity for their own ends. Please cut these cords now. Cut these strings. Sever us from the puppet masters so that we may no longer have to dance the dance of the puppets. We are not puppets, we are sovereign human beings, and we reclaim our sovereignty now. Now see big black wings circling above me. This is Archangel Ezekiel, the angel of death. And Ezekiel comes to assist the spirits of those ghost ancestors who have been trapped on the earth plane and who have not been able to cross over to the light and back to source because they have not been at peace with what happened to them in their lives. And I'm being told that this piece of work that we have just done to cut the strings between humans and these puppet masters, this will have brought peace to many, many, many of the ghost ancestors who are still roaming our earth, our middle world, and they are now free to cross over. And so I extend this invitation to all of the ghost ancestors who have been stuck on this earth plane since their deaths. I invite you now to cross over the rainbow bridge. I invite you now to go with the luminous ancestors. I invite you now to take the invitation from Archangel Ezekiel to go now and return to source. I can hear an alarm going off somewhere. There is a clock alarm. There's a little clock that's in the bedroom here that's not my clock, it's somebody else's clock, and the alarm has not worked. The clock has not worked for quite a long time. It's a digital clock. It stops now. It's a digital clock, but the alarm just went off. And that just speaks to me of the fact that it's time. It's time to wake up. Of course, it's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. That was our wake-up call. Okay, is there anything else that we need to do at this time, please, allies? Is there anything else left to complete before we finish this healing transmission? So I'm going to call at this time for a power ally to fill us with whatever power we need at this time to help us through these increasingly turbulent times. Who is going to come as an ally for us today at this time? Okay, I'm being shown the image of a very typical, classic alien head, like humanoid figure with a big head with big eyes, big black eyes, in that kind of quite pointy chin, but big oval-shaped head. I'm being told that the allies that are holding us through this are also not human, that they are benevolent, galactic. We might call them extraterrestrial, but that's not the term that they prefer to use. They are our galactic allies, supporters, and they are helping us through this transition, through these times of turbulence and change, to help to liberate us. You know, this cutting of the strings of the puppets from the puppet master, this is a process of liberation. We are being given our freedom, but we can't be given freedom until we can see that we were enchained and enslaved and being controlled and manipulated. So this transmission today again is really trying to show us the strings that have been manipulating us in so many ways, but also showing us that we have the power to be liberated and to choose liberation for ourselves. Again, we come back to this point of choice. Are we going to choose to be slaves, or are we going to choose to be free? Ask yourself that question and answer that question for yourself as well. And so I give thanks to the support and the power being given to us by our galactic family as we go through this big shift. And the rain has stopped. I can hear just the odd splat of water on the roof where it's dripping off the trees, but the rain has stopped now. Isis has finished her crying, her lamenting, her healing on of our heads back onto our bodies, our consciousness back onto our existence. And so I wish to give great thanks to all of those who have come and helped us in this healing work today. Thank you for the healing. Thank you for the healing. Thank you for the healing. And now, taking a few deep breaths. Coming back into this time and back into this place. Back into your body and back into your breath. Giving your fingers a little wiggle. Giving your toes a little wiggle. And stretching yourself out to return to the here and now. And I look forward to taking another soul journey with you soon. Lots of love, Joanna Joy.